Okay, listeners and viewers, here we are today at another episode of Compliance in Motion, the podcast where we dive deep into the stories, strategies, and systems that power real workplaces and their safety and quality compliance. I'm your host, Tony DeAscentis, CEO and co-founder of Ving. We're here to provide you information whether you work on the floor, in the field, or you're leading from the front office. And today we're super excited to have a guest by the name of Dennis Adams, Quality Assurance Manager at Carlton Farms. Maybe some of you even know the brand, and I'm sure you do and have had their product before. I know before today's podcast, I was like, I know that name. I've used this product before. So, Dennis, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you here.
Thank you, sir.
So, for folks that don't know what Dennis's responsibility is here, Dennis is completely responsible for Carlton Farms operations and is held accountable for daily USDA inspections and safe quality food. The organization itself is certified under the Global Food Safety Initiative and follows the most rigorous standards of the hazard analysis and critical control points. What that means to us in layman's term is they go well beyond the requirement into an area that few venture, I'm sure, and that's what really starts to set them apart. So, Dennis, help us understand a little bit about the business of Carlton Farms and the primary focus of what you guys deliver, and then tell us a little bit about your journey and how you ended up in the position that you are today.
Okay. Thanks, Tony, for inviting me to this podcast. Start off. Carlton Farms was originally started as a small family-owned butcher shop / smokehouse in Carlton, Oregon. We're about an hour or so, a little over an hour south of Portland. So you have kind of an idea where we're at. Oregon is a state after all. And so what we do here is, in quick terms, I like to say pigs walk in on one side and come out in a box on the other. We're between 12 and 1,500 hogs a week, Monday through Friday. We have quite a line of further processed products, value add products, however you want to call them, where we make ham, sausage, bacon. We have about 22 different types of sausage. We have Canadian bacon, we have regular bacon, applewood bacon, pepper bacon, about anything you can think of. And then we also have fresh cuts as well with pork chops, spare ribs, back ribs. We do smoke some back ribs and spare ribs as well. So they're just short of being reheated, ready to eat. If you're really brave, you can actually eat them right out of the package if you want. We also are experimenting with 2 different flavors of snack sticks. We have a pepperoni and a teriyaki right now.
Yeah.
Which they are not shelf stable yet. We just have to tweak our process a little more to get the water activity down. And then we'll be able to package them as not requiring refrigeration.
Yeah.
My journey here, I spent almost 24 years in the Army. When I retired, I was a food inspector for the last 21. Most people don't even realize that the Department of Defense, especially the Army, even has such a job as a food inspector. But that's what I did for my last 21 years. Really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it so much that I've been retired for 13 years and keep doing the same thing.
There you go.
One of my side hobbies, aside from hunting and camping, is barbecue. So I kind of landed in the perfect spot.
There you go.
I have access to everything from bone-in butts, boneless butts, loins, bacon, whole hogs, whatever I happen to need. So, working for another company on the East Coast, that also did a lot of value add products. And then this opportunity opened up here in Carlton. Um, I'd always wanted to do work at a slaughter plant, and just had not gotten there. I worked for the value add for one of the broadliners. I worked for the cheese company. Um, Worked in a consumer products good and airline catering kitchen at the same time when I first
Yep.
retired. So I had kind of a gamut of experience, and slaughter was not on that list yet. And when I was stationed in Washington State, about 2/3 of the way through my career, and I really wanted to get back to the Pacific Northwest. So it was just kind of the perfect storm, a good opportunity in a place that I wanted to live, hopefully for the rest of my life anyway. So I
Yeah.
jumped on it and haven't looked back. I really enjoy, the Pacific Northwest. Really beautiful place. I love my job as well. So couldn't ask for a better position and a better job.
Man, that sounds like you have got the perfect intersection between your what really motivates you and what you want to do and the geography that you get to do in it. So hats off to you. One of my takeaways from your explanation that you just walked us from is that, all that aside, your experience really is from A to Z, and it's depth and breadth all the way around. So that's really interesting. And I kind of see that as maybe like a little bit analogous from your organization of Carlton Farms going from farm to fork, I guess is the concept, right? Uh, so at an organization like Carlton Farms, there's certainly a lot of regulation and a lot of rules that need to follow. But before we get into that, I just want to have a quick question for you. When you walk in first thing in the day and you kind of walk across the floor on a typical day, what are one or two visual cues that tell you, yep, our quality system is working today? Our employees are on spot, doing what they're supposed to be doing in a safe way.
Well, being that we do have live animals on one side of the building, when like almost like when you come through the door after you get home from work, you just kind of take a deep breath in. Um, and that smell will tell you whether are we clean enough to start or do we still got some work to do.
There you
So
go.
kind of that's kind of where I start right there. Um, we do have a third party cleaning company that does our cleaning for us after our production day is over. So that's kind of where I start. And
Yeah.
then so kind of get my computer fired up, take a look at the cameras that we've got around, make sure that everybody's doing the right thing. We don't have a flood somewhere that I'm not aware of, that we need to get dealt with before the pre-op starts. So that's kind of how I start my day right there.
Yeah. So is it a process of checks and balances? And help me understand, does the US are you literally under a daily kind of inspection from USDA, or are those more periodic and scheduled out? Um, and how does that affect working in tandem with like OSHA regulations? Do they intersect? It seems like a lot to keep track of.
Well, yes, to answer your question, yes, we are under uh we have a USDA veterinarian, a CSI, or I can't remember his name, customer support
Huh?
inspector, right? And we have a food inspector on the line because we do slaughter. So with that, we're under not only the regular USDA kind of regulation with safe food, but we also have the extra added task of humane handling of the animal,
Mhm.
which requires that they always have access to water, um, that they're as comfortable as we can keep them. They are moved to the kill box with the least amount of excitement possible, um, to basically give them the best last moments of their life that we possibly can.
It's
Um,
gotta be it seems to me like it's such a unique situation compared to so many of our listeners, and viewers that come to the Compliance in Motion podcast. because they're dealing with a totally different raw material, if you will, right? So, so, so you have a whole different level of process to follow and compassion to follow with the process that you're going in
Yep.
for. So, along with those regulate or those individuals, are those individuals placed into the organization by USDA to monitor the situation? Or are they people on your staff that are accountable to report to the organization?
No, they are actually assigned by the U.S. Department of Agriculture to our facility.
See, that's interesting because, so many of our listeners are always like, okay, what do I do if OSHA visits? And they might, who knows when they're going to visit, but you actually have this in the shop or the facility daily that is monitoring the organization. So, what kinds of systems do you have in place to monitor that activity? Because it's very, I mean, I would imagine it's super timely and it needs to uh, there's no margin for really deviating from the plan.
Correct. Well, you know, with us being under USDA inspection, basically from the antemortem inspection of the animals to make sure that there's none that are sickly. Um, with pigs, we don't have to deal with the down cow situation. Um, but if there is one that's injured and can't walk, then we have a special protocol to deal with that. But they're not automatically condemned like a beef would be. Um, but then the whole the viscera inspection process, the final rail to make sure that there's no feces, hair, or milk on the carcass before it goes into the cooler. And then that's when it also receives the inspected and passed stamp from the USDA with our plant number on it. And then because we have further processed products, the USDA is not quarantined, if you will, just to the kill floor. They have access to the whole building to watch our fabricators that are breaking the carcass down, into our sausage packing room, into our smokehouses. They review our daily our records packet from the previous day to make sure that if we cook sausage that it made lethality um, for the kill step, and then it also was cooled properly within the USDA regulations and standards. Oat does not come here very often. They were here. It's usually between 5 to 7 years they'll show up because we're less than 100 people. And we have some people that get caught or something like that, but like people falling in grinders and all those things that make the national news, we don't really have those kind of things
Hmm.
because we have a couple of bandsaws, we have a grinder, a couple of sausage stuffers, so we don't have any huge machinery. um and pretty much all of our fabrication is done by hand as well. So a lot of hand boning, no pneumatic knives, no none of that.
Okay,
So
interesting.
Oil doesn't come here a lot. They do come just to kind of check us off the list that they were here.
Sure.
But a pretty robust safety program here as well. Um, to make sure that when they do show up, we're prepared.
Yep, absolutely. So let's talk about the safety program a little bit for a few minutes. So, talk to us about the safety culture in general, and what your approach is to safety training. Is it in person? Is it online? Is it a mixture? Is there certain requirements that individuals need to be certified in before they can do particular tasks?
Well, basically, how our operation works here, um, unless you come in having coming from a slaughterhouse where you have previous slaughter experience, everybody's basically a blank slate.
Mhm.
So um, part of our onboarding process covers, the GMPs with washing your hands and having clean clothes when you come to work that you need to shower, so you don't smell like, no pun intended, but pig pen.
Yeah.
Um, you know, because my personal feeling is and what I tell everyone when I do my interview with them at onboarding is, if you wouldn't want someone else to treat your food or look like you when they're handling your food, then don't force them to have to deal with, if you don't want somebody having a cold and dripping their nose stuff in your food, then why are you going to do that to them? And they don't even have an idea. And those kind of things kind of hit home. Or if you wouldn't serve this food to your grandmother or your little kids, then why are you going to expect somebody else to buy it and eat it?
Two great, I mean, those are very practical messages that actually apply across the board to other industries. If you think about it, listeners out there, it's
Yep.
it's literally taking pride in what you're doing and saying if I wouldn't use this product or consume this product, then why should I expect somebody else to? So I need to up my game to the correct level of expectation. And then obviously, I'm sure at Carlton Farms, you have some policy and procedure around these kinds of things so that
Yes.
people can maintain towards expectation in that. So,
Correct.
I want to do some dive down deep, and just because this your line of work and the environment and everything is very different than a typical guest of ours. And I'm just curious to see what the dynamics are and how they're different. For example, training people on slips, trips, and falls. I would think your environment, in my mind, having not walked through it, it just seems like this would be kind of a number one thing on your list for safety, that and knife and cutting safety. Do those two kind of bubble up to the top?
Yes. In the onboarding process, we talk a lot about slips, trips, and falls. Um, Simply because we're in the fabrication room, as an example, runs 36 to 38 degrees. And so when we're fabricating the hogs, obviously it's just like a piece of fat back. If it falls on the floor, and there's a little bit of water, you're gonna go down faster than if you stepped on a
Yeah,
banana.
right, right.
Same thing with a piece of meat. Then we go to the kill floor, where we have blood and body fluids that leak onto the floor, which when obviously we all know when blood clots, it becomes very slippery as well. So what we do to combat those kind of inherent risks is we hose down the floor quite a bit wherever there's blood or those kind of things. And our floor is also textured. So it's not like a flat granite floor or anything like that. It's also has a pretty good texture to it. And then one of the requirements that we have for footwear, one of the only apparel, if you will, requirements that we have is that you have to have closed-toe shoes, obviously, but that are also slip-resistant soles. Now, is that going to prevent you from slipping? No, it's not, but it's definitely going to help prevent you from slipping. And then we also cover, if you have to cover a spot that's got some grease on it, whatever, that we can't clean up immediately, how to kind of do that, the penguin shuffle, so that you don't slip until we can get some salt down or something like that to make it a little less dangerous. We also make sure that hoses are rolled up. We don't really have any. All our electrical cords come from the ceiling. So we're plugging them in that way, and instead of running electrical cords all over the floor, which is also a trip hazard, but it's also difficult to move parts around when you have to jump cords all the time.
Absolutely, right. So let's talk a little bit about the knife and cutting safety. So I think I heard you say that you're doing a lot of the cutting by hand. Is that what?
Yes.
So so in my give us describe a visual for us of what that. So they're using big knives, little sharp knives.
It's going to depend on the task, um, because if you're on the shaving table on the kill floor, then you're going to have, I think it's about an 8-inch blade to kind of to shave with. If you're doing an evisceration, then obviously you're going to have maybe a 4 or 5 inch semi flex kind of a blade. Um, We also use a lot of lamb skinners to do a lot of our work as well. On the kill floor, lamb skinners have a little bit wider blade, a little bit stiffer blade, so that you can cut through that H bone without a problem. You can get through the pork skin without too much problem, and it's not going to flex. And then on the fabrication side, it's pretty much personal preference whether you like a stiff blade or a semi flex blade, but most of them are about 6 inches.
Mhm.
As far as PPE goes,
That's
um,
my next question was going to be around that technique, routine, or equipment for your particular environment.
besides the hairnet, beard net, if you have facial hair, we also everyone wears a bump cap. And then as far as for everyone that wields a knife, you're required to wear a some form of a cut glove, and on the kill floor they're also wearing a cut resistant sleeve. So that goes basically from wrist to bicep. I kind of slip your finger in, so you have your cut glove on, then you slip this sleeve on, and then it kind of clamps onto your bicep, or not clamps, but it closes on your bicep. That way, if you're cutting, or whatever, and you bump something and your blade comes off, and you hit your arm, you're not going to cut your arm.
Right,
Um,
right.
as far as on the fabrication side, everyone wears a cut glove, obviously, on their non knife hand, but they also wear a chainmail apron in case they're boning out a leg. The knife slips, they don't stab themselves. And there has been across the nation, people get into these altercations, and one throws a knife at the other one, and or just horseplay, and then someone ends up getting stuck or making a ride to the hospital in an ambulance. So everyone is required to wear that chainmail apron, and then have on their non-dominant hand a cut glove. Um, and since we really got hard on that, because some people were like, "Well, I can't feel anything. I lose my dexterity, whatever."
Right, right.
Well, then, but then they're cutting making nicks on their fingers, and now we have to get band-aids, and it just opens up a whole nother Pandora's box of problem.
Right.
So,
Plus,
uh,
I mean, for
that,
their own personal protection, it's got to be a major thing. The thing that
right.
I find interesting about it, though, is that, okay, I got these gloves, I got this apron, I've got whatever, obviously, the clothes that I have on, things are starting to get heavy. So, ergonomics and repetition in motion is the process itself very repetitive. And then you have these heavy piece of knives and aprons and things that you're working with. What's the strategy there for tweaking a workstation or a rotation schedule to keep people from, being injured just from that ergonomics and repetition of work?
Well, basically, our tables are set, our tabletops are set at just about a little bit above waist height. For the average size employee that we have. We have a couple where it might be just a little bit higher, but for the most part, yes, it is a very repetitious thing. You're doing the same thing over and over all day. But um, raises are based on the number of positions that you can maintain line speed, and our line speed for the kill floor is about 35 head an hour,
Mm.
and the fabrication side it's about 40 head an hour. And so the more positions obviously that the better, the more the better your compensation is. We have leg boners and we have picnic boners, um which those two products use them for the most part go into sausage, or some sort of a ground pork or something like that. So that's the ideal starting point for a new employee on the fabrication line, because you can perfect your knife skills without having to make these super laser accurate cuts that if you're off, you know, now we have to throw it into trim because we can't sell it any other way. And with on the kill floor, it's a little bit different. They just kind of same thing, same process. They need the more positions, the better compensation you get. But there's not so much precision required other than on the eviscerator. But that's one of the last positions that you learn. But in order to kind of, the ergonomics is we just kind of everything, no one does a whole lot of things. You're doing maybe one or two steps, and then you pass it on to the next person, or it goes down the line, whatever the case may be. And every day you rotate. So you might be boning picnics for a couple of days, and then you go over to the leg bones so that you can do that side too. So it's a different piece, and you're kind of learning how to do a couple of positions as well. So it kind of a win-win situation for us and for the employee as well, because they're getting
Mixes it
more
up.
exposure and they can get a better raise, and we're not burning people out doing one thing all the time.
And that's the key right there, especially for anything to do with ergonomics and really just the task at hand. If you're
Right.
mixing it up for people, it's giving them variety throughout their week or month or however often you get to mix it up, and also giving them the opportunity to learn different parts of the process. So, building these kinds of job rotations in certainly makes a lot of sense. Now, we're talking about safety, employee safety. Well, first we started talking about the humane treatment of the animals. Then we're talking about the employee safety, PPE, and environment, cleanup, and things like that. How does chemical and sanitation hazards come into play? Because obviously we're working with food, but then at some point we have sanitation and we're working with some type of chemicals. Tell us a little bit about like what's one of the chemical handling challenges that you have in this kind of environment?
The biggest chemical the biggest chemical challenge, I guess, is, as I alluded to before, the fabrication room is 36 to 38 degrees. So it's all washing that equipment that's been 250 to 300 hogs run through it. There's a pretty decent layer of fat grease there, and obviously we have hoses that have 140 and 180-degree water coming out of them. But that's if you don't know how to use that water properly, you're just kind of spreading the grease even more and just getting a real thin layer everywhere. So the sanitation company needs to have a chemical that's strong enough to break the grease down, get it off so it can wash down the drain, but not so strong, so toxic that it actually becomes a contaminant to the meat.
Oh, right.
So it's kind of there's a fine balance there, because it has to be strong enough to work, but not so strong that you can't rinse it off. Um, and then also, with the USDA inspection and such, um, it has to be clean. And one of the ways that we know, or how we can kind of test that, is we use ATP, or adenosine triphosphate test. 5 to 7 surfaces every morning, all food contact surfaces, because those to us are the most important ones to make sure that are clean. And obviously it may look clean, and then when you run the swab, it's not as clean as you thought.
Yeah.
Then the sanitation company is present until either USDA does their pre-op or we finish ours. And USDA does one to three pre-ops a week based on have tasks that they get, and then things that they've seen previously where we've had issues, whatever like that, and they just want to double check to make sure that everything is still safe and wholesome,
Yeah.
with our processes.
So it sounds like throughout any given day, week, month, obviously, that you're collecting a lot of data from different steps in the process.
Yep.
Um, so I see a little bit of a smile. You're collecting a lot of data. Do you currently have like technology that you use to collect all these data points, or do you have a vision of where you're headed?
Right here,
Uh, it,
right
oh, your
here,
pen and paper. Yeah, there you go.
right here.
The
Um,
tried and true.
yep. Actually, I'm looking at some options to at least automate as much as possible. There's always going to be some things that with a company our size are just not cost effective to do, but A lot of things we can do. It's just finding the right platform that will work for us.
Hmm.
Um, but yes, I would like to be able to automate stuff and then be able to have pivot tables and such where I don't have to do so much manual inputting.
Yep.
Um, but right now, we're just not at that point where we can do it. Um, we're kind of at the point where we're too big to be called little and too little to be called big. And so we're kind of working on that. We've got a couple of pretty good, pretty hefty customers that seem to be adding another line or another 2 lines of sausage. So, slowly but surely we're getting there. Our plant was built in 1956. The
Oh,
original plant was built in 1956 with a few
yeah.
add-ons. And so we're not at quite at busting capacity yet, but if things continue to grow over the next couple of years, we will be there, and have to look at making another addition, another expansion, or possibly even starting construction of a new facility um, that will be a lot more modern, obviously, and
Hmm.
have kind of a one direction flow where right now we have a couple of things that, we have to be careful where how raw product and RTE product crosses, make sure that it's not happening at the same time so one doesn't cross contaminate the other.
Absolutely right. So, I mean, good luck on your journey in getting those things automated. I know we talk to a lot of people all the time, and especially as you know from being in the industry, a staple of the safety professional and the quality professional is pretty much their three-ring binder and their pen and paper. And it does take some effort sometimes to move from one to the other. Data analysis and trend analysis, especially as we venture out into these new worlds of artificial intelligence, combining the two really alleviate a lot of work from the plate of someone like yourself and help create new insights. Well, as we round the corner here to the tail end of our interview and having you as a guest today, I'd like to ask you a question about safety and quality leadership. So, for our listeners out there today that might be in a similar position to you, or they're considering getting in a position in a processing plant, what's the one do this first step you think people can do to make a difference and really raise the bar in their food safety game without looking for a huge budget? Right. So, what in your years of experience, would you say, you know what, if I was walking into a place, this is what I would do first?
There's so many number ones, it's hard to choose which one. But I would say probably the best thing if you're looking to get into it, but you're not there yet, is understand, the inherent risks, things that you can't stop. You know,
Mm.
you're gonna get, in our case, you're gonna get pigs that are unruly, and now you have to figure out how to move them without violating the law and getting them overly excited or whatever like that, which is going to have ripple effects down the line with poor quality meat, which is going to make a poor quality sausage, poor quality bacon, which in turn is going to be a poor quality on your plate when you go to eat it.
Right.
Um, and just understand that the whole process. um if, like, we do a lot of smoke products, so there's understand the everyone wants to have clean deck, in their sausage. That's kind of seems to be like the new thing where we're not going to get away from nitrites, so we're going to use a lot of celery powder and beet powder. Well, know how those things work because they don't all work the same, and know the best way to employ them, um so that you can maintain, your mouth feel and such like that, your taste, but yet you're still providing a safe product to the consumer, because once it leaves your plant you don't know what's going to happen to it. And so you kind of have to plan for the worst. A consumer is going to go to the grocery store in California or some other hot place, and then do it while I'm out. I'm going to do some more shopping somewhere else and
Yeah.
just leave my stuff in a bag. And then when you get home, oh well, my meat's spoiled, and they don't know why. And so The biggest thing, my biggest worry is making sure that all of our stuff meets lethality and then a little more, but not to such an effect that it's now the quality is compromised because it's so overcooked that it's terrible.
Yep, I hear you. But it's truly this farm to fork concept and a whole unique dynamic set of variables along the way.
Exactly.
This has been a fascinating discussion for us today, Dennis. I want to thank you so much. We really appreciate you carving some time out of your day. Ladies and gentlemen, listeners, viewers out there, this has been a conversation with Dennis Adams, Quality Assurance Manager at Carlton Farms. Now go out and get some of their product and have a great, excellent meal or barbecue. Dennis, thank you so much for participating in the podcast today. I've been your host throughout today's session, Tony DeAscentis. Of course, if you like what you've heard, subscribe, like, and please forward this interesting conversation on to some of your colleagues that can benefit from some of the insights that Dennis has shared with us today. Dennis, have a great evening and thank you so much for joining us today.
Sure.